Thank you, Rahul. We're all running fast so that we can maintain a semblance of status quo, and slowly we're going to pick up pace again. But what does business in this new normal look like? To talk to us about the technology of the workplace of the future, we have Harvey Koppel, adjunct professor at the Pepperdine Graziadio Business School and former SVP and CIO of the Global Consumer Group at Citibank. Mr. Koppel, thank you for joining us. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Ashwin, for that wonderful introduction, and it is absolutely my pleasure to welcome you to the Enterprise Innovation Summit 2020. When I originally spoke with Greyhead Media about the opportunity to speak with you this afternoon, I was told the topic was technology for workplace of the future, which was a very exciting topic for me to think about until I started to understand that I would be on the hook to talk about what the workplace of the future is. And I don't have a crystal ball. I'm often reminded of one of my favorite quotes from Yogi Berra, a great baseball player here in the United States, who used to say, predictions are hard, especially when they're about the future. But in any case, just by way of brief background, so you know the context of the remarks that I will be sharing with you this afternoon, I am currently serving as an adjunct professor and instructor at both the University of Pennsylvania and Pepperdine University. I serve as an executive advisor and management consultant and frequently guest lecture at universities literally all around the world, as well as keynote speaking. I have served as the co-founder and executive director of the Center for CIO Leadership, which was one of the very early social networks for professionals, in this case, for about 3,500 C-suite executives across 80 countries and 70 industries, where I got to learn an enormous amount about the role of CIO, how it could be improved, what people are doing, and what they need to advance their profession. Served as the executive vice chairman of the World BPO Forum, senior vice president and chief information officer of the Global Consumer Group at Citi, and notably often called a pioneer, an inventor, and innovator. I do have a couple of patents to my name, mainly in the financial services industry. I would like to start off with one of my other favorite quotes. This one is from Charles Darwin. Over 100 years ago, Darwin talked about not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent. It is the one that is the most adaptable to change. And the key word there is really adaptable. We hear a lot about agility and adaptability and viability and sustainability. I often call the ability sisters. But it's really adaptable and adaptability that I believe is at the root of this whole notion of not only surviving, but thriving in whatever the current environment may be. And as we will see from my later remarks, these attributes really refer to not just technology, but also to changes happening in our physical world, in our social world. We certainly see a lot of that going on as we speak, political and moral and spiritual environments as well. As examples of how these dynamics play out, if you take the Fortune 500 as a metric or a barometer of companies' abilities to adapt to change, 88% of those companies that were on the Fortune 500 list in 1955 either no longer exist, have merged, or been acquired by other companies, or have otherwise fallen from the list. Another interesting data point, the average lifespan of Fortune 500 company in 1955 was 75 years. Today it is 15, and that number is shrinking rapidly. So what we conclude from these figures is the pace and volume of change are both accelerating rapidly, both very, very key drivers of change and causing us as chief information officers to understand how to best adapt. So here's an interesting chart that puts some quantitative measure around the points that I was just making. This is a pretty typical chart. It shows for many of the most popular technology innovations how long it took to reach 50 million users. Starting with the automobile in 1885, you see 62 years. Telephone in 1876, 50 years, and so forth. I'm not going to read the entire chart. You certainly will have this available to you for your future reference. But what's interesting on this chart is if you go to the lower right-hand corner, you see in 2006, it took Twitter 2 years in order to reach 50 million users, as compared to the invention of the automobile in 1885, which took 62 years. An astounding addition to this chart would be the introduction of Pokemon Go in 2016, some 10 years later, following the introduction of Twitter, where it literally took 19 days to get to 50 million users. And as mentioned before, that trend is only continuing to increase in terms of shorter time to get to that 50 million user benchmark. Along with all those users, there is a tremendous volume of activity, interaction, and content being created that is certainly posing a major both opportunity and challenge to companies and to CIOs that enable those companies with technology platforms. Just to provide some quick examples, notice this is 60 seconds of what happened on the internet last year. In 2019, Facebook, 1 million users logging in. Instant messaging, 18.1 million texts sent in 1 minute. YouTube, 4.5 million videos viewed in 1 minute of internet time. Again, I'm not going to attempt to read all these facts and figures, but I think they speak for themselves in terms of the enormous volume of data that's being produced by an ever-increasing number of users that are accessing these services. This is perhaps one of the core slides of my talk to you today. I've titled it The Second Half of the Chessboard, which is actually homage to a very interesting reading by Ray Kurzweil, who's one of the chief scientists at Google, and talks extensively on the importance of exponential curves to the technology and to the impact of the technology that we will be talking about. So let me explain. Across the top, essentially what you see are 4 waves of technology change. What you see on the bottom are the length of time that each of these waves took to come to maturity and ultimately move on to the next wave. The curve you see is essentially the rate of change. So let me dive into this one step further. If you look at wave 1, the agrarian age, characterized as reactive, transactional, and unconnected. Essentially, people were farmers in small villages and towns, not a lot of connectivity. Most of what was happening, certainly in the technology realm, very reactive. It was about protection. It was about survival. It was about farming, and very transactional. That age, characterized by millennia, literally thousands of years of civilization adapting and moving on in this type of environment. In wave 2, in the industrial age, we can think about it as movement towards responsive and tactical, but still locally centered. So this has now moved from reactive to responsive and from transactional to tactical, but still locally connected in the way in which communication was done, certainly an improvement from unconnected, but very local in its nature. This stage lasted for centuries. Wave 3, the knowledge age, which is actually where many of us have grown up, changed to be one of more proactivity, more strategic, and more globally connected. And I think we've all lived through the trend that took us from initially domestic or national organizations to eventually international organizations, then global organizations. And many of us actually are still at that point, or just at the point of beginning to depart from the knowledge age and moving into wave 4, which is the collaboration age. As you see, I put a hypothetical dot in the place on the curve where I believe we are now. We are now moving from the knowledge age to the collaboration age, from an age that we lived through over decades to one that is now changing in a matter of years, and based on the Pokemon Go example, one that will continue to accelerate, now possibly changing even daily. Wave 4, the collaboration age, which is really where we are, talks about technology that is cognitive, technology that is predictive, and importantly, hyper-connected.
Hello, good afternoon, and welcome once again. I hope the day is going great so far. We had promised you a great lineup of expert speakers for this year's edition of Enterprise Innovation Summit, which is virtual. And I'm here with a brilliant session for you with none other than Shinam Ori, who is the Vice President for Enterprise Data and Mobility Engineering at Dell. Shinam wears more than one hat, actually. She plays the role of an APJ CIO leader and is also the chairperson for Women in Action chapter for Dell India. With over a quarter of a century of experience in various roles in global delivery, product management, testing, and leadership, Shinam is a very versatile leader. At Dell, she's responsible for the data and mobility engineering. Her vision is to transform the IT delivery into a digital IT as a service business through a combination of platforms, products, and services. And today, she's our guest for a fireside chat on a topic that's more relevant than ever before. The topic is fostering workplace transformation with agility and innovation. Actually, a lot has taken place in the past 6 to 7 months. From what we read, see, and hear today, it looks a very different world than what it was until a couple of quarters back. It's our response to COVID-19 that has resulted in the most rapid transformation of the workplace. I mean, we have spent years to discuss and affect transformation at work and institutionalize innovation and agility. However, it really saw very slow progress or very slow pace of implementation. All of a sudden, work from home got enforced and things changed overnight. Globally, a very small percentage of workers were fully equipped to work remotely. I guess it was merely 6 to 7% of the total working population that had the ability to do so. And now, remote work seems to be the new normal. And we have gone from digitizing the relationship between company and customer to digitize the relationship between employer and employee. So with this as a background, I would like to welcome Shinam for the fireside chat and also at the Enterprise Innovation Summit this year. I'm glad to be talking to you today, Shinam. How are you doing?
Pleasure to be here. Pleasure to be here. Good afternoon, Rahul, and good afternoon to all of you who are logged in today to be seeing this summit. I'm sure you're learning a lot, and I'm hoping I can add to that learning.
Thank you. So let me just begin with asking, it's historic, it's unprecedented, but it's also real. Almost half the world has been under partial or full lockdown. Besides other aspects, it brought forth some very unique and first of their kind challenges for businesses to manage continuity, serve customers, and also maintain normalcy. So, how would you summarize the situation as you have witnessed it over these months?
I think working from home or remote working is not new to Dell, right? We started this practice of allowing our employees to be remote about 10 years back when we actually launched the 1.0 version of Connected Workplace. With a view that 50% of our employees could be remote, and we would really work around the global, so to say, talent workforce that is available to us. Um, so when this happened, we were already at 65. So we were already 65% of our employees were working remote. Now, let me also explain to you what is our definition of working remote. Working remote means you do not have a desk in your office in any physical site. It still means that you can come to office 1 or 2 times a week, okay, to do your social interaction, meet with the rest of the team and stuff like that, but you don't have a dedicated workplace um, at office itself. It also means that you have a particular guideline and a policy framework to follow in terms of logging and stuff like that. Now, when we decided early in March this year that all of us and all who should work from home, um, we had only one challenge really, and which was our entire contact center, which is primarily based out of India, had to suddenly work from home. Right now, this contact center, the employees were working in shifts. So there were 3 people who were kind of linked to one desktop and to a phone, to an Avaya phone sitting on their desk. How does one change 4,000 people to use a laptop sitting at home with a soft phone was a challenge in front of us. One of the things that we have also done in about the last 2 or 3 years, and primarily from an onboarding experience, is classify everybody into personas. So starting from a developer or a software engineer to what is an infrastructure engineer to a network engineer to a sales entry level person to a sales executive to an IT executive, there are different personas available at Dell. Now, basis that on day one, we can tell you what kind of laptop you would need, what do you need in that laptop, and what are the other privileges across the intranet that you would need. So everything is kind of predefined in a checklist, and actually predefined, test drives are available that you just switch into any infrastructure, and your profile and persona will get created. That enabled us, and I'm not joking, Rahul, over a weekend to have 4,000 people equipped with laptops, with soft phones on their laptops, and had the entire contact center the ability to work from home. So I think for us that was the most difficult piece of the entire puzzle. Um, the other thing that was from an India perspective, right? When you're on a VPN, you don't have static IP. One of the requirements of the government was to have a static IP. That took us about 3 weeks. We took a permission and we got that permission in about 3 weeks. We had kind of upgraded our VPN to ensure that we could provide static IPs to the government for any kind of usage. But really it has been a journey. We've been through that journey, of what kind of collaboration tools we should have and stuff like that. So we were ready for this change.
No, I completely agree. In the beginning, as you said, that the 65%, the company was already prepared, and your definition of remote working is a very classic definition where the employee doesn't have a desk in the office. He or she can still come a couple of days in a week. However, not all organizations are as evolved or as ready as you described Dell was. So while the CIOs and IT organizations were, of course, puzzled momentarily, they did arrange some band-aid solutions to keep the momentum high.
Yes.
What, according to you, now I'm asking you to actually look at the perspective outside of Dell. So what, according to you, were the most visible gaps in technology pieces, approach, and strategy to efficiently complete tasks, collaborate, and meet the business objectives in a very timely fashion?
I think when I talk to my fellow CIOs, right, there are two or three things that come out. One is, how do you define collaboration technologies, right? And what is suddenly in the new way when you're not sitting next to each other? And for us, we were doing pair programming, right? That required two people to be sitting in a 5.5, 6 feet space and really talking to each other, and one being the driver, one being the navigator from behind. So how does one take all of that remote? So what should be your collaboration tools? What is the tool set that you've got? And then the second one, which was far more important, was, does your infrastructure have the capability to support this kind of framework, right? And I'm not going very far. I'm still talking Dell, right? Our load on the VPN tripled. So we had to increase capacity in the first 2-3 weeks of our VPN itself. We did that quickly, kept seeing what is happening. The second aspect that we saw was, our service desk, right? The infrastructure service desk, the IT service desk used to see a set of volume coming through tickets. That actually 4 times, it was quadrupled, right? So how does one manage SLA when you know you're working remote and stuff like that? So it was a learning process even for us from a process perspective. But how does one manage that kind of a setup? And the third very critical bit that I've seen, every CIO worry about and think about is the security piece, right? When you're at home and you're remote, and specifically in India, if let's assume you're sharing a apartment with some more like-minded people who are not family. Those people could be working for competition. How do you ensure data does not leave the laptop, right? And how do you um, manage access and also manage activity that is happening at an endpoint was one of the very big concerns.
Yeah, I think brilliant. You, without even me asking you that question on the data security and the data privacy, the risk management of data going haywire, you have already addressed it in some form. I will certainly ask you a specific question later in our conversation.
Okay.
So, moving on to the current situation gave us some really key lessons on how to and how not to prepare for disruptions in the future. It was ultimately a harmony between talent, technology, and collaboration that help in achieving the business goals at scale. As a pioneering company in the workforce transformation, how did Dell Technologies deal with its own environment? While you have already explained to me in the first question, what were the core principles that one should be following to prepare for such an unprecedented situation?
So I don't think we were preparing for an unprecedented situation.
For a technology-driven Agenda 2021, and joining us on this panel are Priyadar, the head of digital at Amway, Arvind Sivaramakrishnan, the CIO at Apollo Hospitals, Ritu Madbavi, the CIO at FCB Ulka, Deepu KV, President at Bajaj Allianz General Insurance, Manish Israni, CIO at Yota Infrastructure, and moderating this is Amrita Gangotra, the MD at IT Youth Digital. Amrita, over to you.
Thank you, and good afternoon to all. Today's panel, which is about preparing for the future, people first, technology-driven agenda for 2021. The rapid migration to digital technologies driven by the pandemic will continue into the recovery. By now, most C-suite executives have led their companies to digitize at least in some parts of their business to protect employees and serve customers facing mobility restrictions as the result of the COVID crisis expands. In a McKinsey interview, one CEO of a large tech company recently stated, We are witnessing what we will surely be remembered as a historic deployment of remote work and digital access to services across every domain. Indeed, recent data shows that we have vaulted at least 5 years forward in consumer and business digital adoption in a matter of around 8 to 10 weeks. Banks have transitioned to remote sales and service teams and launched a digital outreach to customers to make flexible payment arrangements for loans and mortgages. Grocery stores have shifted to online ordering and delivery as their primary business. In fact, they go to very, very remote places also, which was not possible even 6 months ago. Schools in many locals have pivoted to 100% online learning and digital classrooms. Doctors have begun delivering telemedicine aided by more flexible regulations. Manufacturers have actively developed plans for light out factories and supply chain, and the list just goes on. Now, that is the new normal for us. In the new normal, the customer, supplier, employee behaviors will change significantly. In our panel today, we will be exploring the digital agenda of each of the companies represented here before the pandemic hit the world and after we saw the lockdown started in India. We will then explore the impact of the lockdown on the employees and the adoption of the new ways of working. Finally, we will discuss if and how their companies are adopting the mantra of employee first, technology-driven agenda of 2021. How are they balancing the employee need with the customer behavior? Before we go into the discussion, let me introduce the esteemed panelists here today. We have Priya Dhar, head of the Digital Amway. Priya is a highly accomplished senior digital and technology executive with a track record of managing complex projects and exceeding expectation. She has worked across multiple industries like telecom, manufacturing, retail, etc. Then we have Arvind Shivaramakrishnan, CHCIO of Apollo Hospital. Arvind is an IT and digital transformation expert. He is a senior management professional with experience in IT management consulting and IT adoption for business transformation. Managing large-scale IT enterprises to drive business effectiveness by adopting effective digital technologies, especially in health industries, is his forte. We have Manish Israni, CIO of Yota. Manish has multi-vertical experience with rich experience in telecom, manufacturing, SI, BFSI, and infrastructure verticals. He has technical expertise in IT managed services transition, data center design and build, migration and consolidation, IT management, service delivery, and implementation and consulting assignments. He has done plenty. Ritu Madhavi, CIO for Draft FCB Yulka. Ritu has been with Draft FCB for close to 20 years. FCB Yulka is an advertising company, and it's the flagship agency of the FCB India network, one of the fastest growing networks in the country. It will be interesting to hear Ritu's perspective of what is happening in the advertisement world, which was a forerunner in adopting the digital assets. Last but not the least, we have Deepu KV, President Bajaj Alliance General Insurance. Deepu is an award-winning CXO level executive who drives digital transformation and industry leadership as the head of operations, communities, and CX at Asia's leading general insurance company, Bajaj Alliance. He has been involved in many first-of-its-kind projects using next-gen technologies like blockchain, IoT, etc. Since he has worked in GE for close to 20 years, he is a certified Lean Six Sigma Black Belt. He is a blogger and a writer in digital topics in leading magazines in India and US. Without much ado, let's start with the first question that I will ask each panel members to answer. So let me start with Ritu. I would like to know what was the technology agenda of your company before the pandemic hit us, and what did you do to respond to the lockdown situation? Ritu, over to you.
Okay, to a large extent, I think we were actually very, very well prepared because we've been discussing in general about this whole concept of maybe we should have 1 day a week, 2 days in a month, 3 days in a month on a work from home environment. So that's something which people have been talking of. And 4 years ago or something, we actually were procuring desktops and stuff. And we slowly, I think 4 years ago, we just decided that whatever new hardware we buy, we will move it to a remote one, so mobile, unless it's the creative department. So come lockdown, actually, I think we moved to a fully work from home environment a week before the lockdown was announced. And that was also because the users started panicking. We had cases where we had people coming and saying, listen, I've got a young daughter, she's just come out of hospital, her immune system's low, there's no way I'm going to come to the office. So we actually had preempted it that this thing could happen very, very well in advance. And we had VPN. So a lot of security things were in place. Luckily for us, our entire storage, all our applications are already on cloud. So we are actually 100% on cloud. The only big challenge which we faced was the creative and the studio guys who work on iMacs. Because how do you do? Because MacBooks, yeah, so we had to move them. So what we decided was that, listen, it's not going to work. So we physically moved the iMacs to people's houses. Now that, of course, brought along an inherent challenge. Some of them said we don't have internet connectivity. A lot of youngsters who are staying alone had this whole logic of, listen, I'm staying alone, I'm staying in a small place, I don't have place, but then you had to work around it. So that, if you ask me, was the biggest challenge of actually transporting the Macs, because at that time one didn't expect it to go on for so long. Being mentally aware that, listen, we are doing this whole activity because iMacs are delicate. You're actually moving them. So don't expect, I was very clear that, listen, guys, don't expect in 2 weeks to say, hame wapas aana hai. We are not going to come back so soon. Be clear about it. So I think from application point of view, it was fairly seamless. We didn't have much of a problem. However, a lot of things which I've been trying to implement for the last 5 years or 3 years for sure, with the people like insisting people move all their data to OneDrive so that it's accessible. Funny, it all happened within a week. The moment you say you're going to work from home, you're going to have it, a lot of things are not going to be accessible. So a lot, because I said, if I'm moving iMacs, I need to make sure your backups are there. You have to make sure everything is on OneDrive. And stuff which people had 110 excuses to do for the last 2 years happened in 1 week flat.
So a lot of your agenda that you had in place got implemented. So if I can move on to Priya.
Yeah, hi. I think I agree with Ritu. We were in a very good place. We are a global company. We have, it's not, we are not so our policies, our practices, these backup situations, all are run the same way globally. And, so these practices that we are a cloud, we have every application on cloud. One of the things that I heard Ritu say was we were thinking about having 1 or 2 days work from home. So this practice we already had for a very long time. As a practice, even before this COVID hit, we had 1 day working from home given to all employees. Our assets were all laptops. We'd stopped buying desktops except for contractors. And very few of them, people who are, desk jobs or people who are data entry people. We were only buying desktops for them. Otherwise, laptops were the way to go. Our creatives, we have very high-end Apple MacBooks for our creatives team. Obviously, we are not an advertising company, so there are not a lot of them. But a few of the UX people that I have, they did have really high-end MacBooks. And so we were prepared for this. Obviously, we were not prepared for the pace that this could happen. So we did find challenges like, I don't have space at home to work. I'm living with my parents, so I don't have a corner where I can put my stuff and work. Or, I'm living alone and I don't have, I'm living with my friends. So what do I do? My connectivity is bad. So all that, those were the actual real life issues we faced. But from technology perspective, I can't even remember if there was a challenge. And the best part was our CEO led the transformation. He stopped coming to office, because in India, what happens is people have this thing in their mind that office to jana hai. We have to go to office irrespective of, we don't really,
Because the boss is going.
Yes. So the boss stopped coming, and that's what percolated the whole thing. Everybody in the leadership stopped coming to office. And so, I mean, it was deserted. Even today now, it's all, even today we are not going to office. We are working 100% from home. And if you want to go to office, you actually have to take permissions from a lot of people. The process is so bad that people just stay home.
And how much of the agenda, as Ritu also commented, of your digital strategy before this got fast forwarded or was in place?
I'll give you an example. I joined Amway about a year back, actually exactly a year back, last August. And my KPI was to bring people, we were at around 20% online commerce and 80% offline. And my agenda, my KPI was 3 years, switch it, 80% offline, online and 20% offline. In March, in April end, we hit 100% online. So my KPI for the next 3 years were done. And we are consistently doing 60%, 60 to 70% online since then. So, I mean, we already had plans. They just got sped up like anything.
Yeah, in weeks. Arvind, may we hear your views?
Yeah, I represent the healthcare sector. So we know no sleep, and crisis is well known to us. The pandemic was more digital transformation accelerator only, like my other colleagues mentioned. But we are, as an industry, we've been known to having people accessible at times of crisis and at short notice. So we are pretty used to doctors accessing systems from different locations beyond the hospital or the place of clinical service. Having said that, I think thanks to some of the initiatives of the government, the long pending regulations of the government as it relates to usage and legalization of remote healthcare facilities was accelerated. So it helped us ensure that the services from a realm of legality is well served to all the stakeholders in the community. uh, Always we've been having the ability of several tele services, whether it's telemedicine or teleradiology or telecardiology. All of those have been there, and this has been there right from before the pandemic also. This is all about accessibility of healthcare and ensuring that it's available to a large group, because as an industry always we've been suffering with shortage of resources, qualified resources in the realm of expertise. So not something that the crisis, I think it's just that it brought to light. As it relates to administration and related operational services, just like my other colleagues said, moving stuff to OneDrive was just magical. And it's unfair for me to say we should have had this before, and it's inappropriate. I won't say that. And but I think it just the realization of the what ifs that were happening before have now started becoming that we've opened ourselves to a new paradigm of opportunities. We've opened ourselves to, you know, uh, the fear psychosis of, hey, we've been doing this in this traditional known manner, and if we change, what could happen? I think the pandemic presented a pretty direct circumstance. And I think one good aspect of what has happened is it's really opened up the horizons to innovation and alternate modes of constructive thinking and getting results in a constructive manner. When I say results in a constructive manner with complete governance in place and yet fast tracking, which is always, a thought that certain things ought to take certain amount of time. I think we've done pretty well on that. So, from a larger digital transformation agenda, the agenda was in place for many years now because of the inherent nature of healthcare and the expectations out of healthcare. Just that the pandemic helped accelerate some of it and is also putting more trust and focus into it. So that's kind of how it is there. As it relates to employees, I think we are not an organization or an industry where work from home is a reality for us. So we've not had lockdown days. Thanks to the lockdown of everybody else, we've had good traffic casting ability to get to work. So where it was 1.5 hours, it's now become 20 minutes. So we like people staying at indoors. But that apart, I think we will be in a convenient zone of working from both aspects of it. Again, reiterating on the need for healthcare to do so. And it's not just the clinical aspects of healthcare, but also the entire support industry, because healthcare is a very human focused activity. So ensuring that is there. So that ensures that we're taking care of our employees. We don't call ourselves employees, we call everybody a family member. So that itself says a lot in terms of what we need to take care of our fellow family members and how we need to operate, and still balance our healthcare responsibilities to our official responsibilities as a workplace and to what the society and the nation needs us to do in this rather difficult time. I think well balanced, and making sure that all our family members are enjoying what they are doing, because it's a difficult time and we can't allow the difficult time to get to people. So making sure that they still enjoy what they are doing, that makes them do what they're supposed to do at their best possible capability. So that
Yeah.
high employee trust and how technology can help employees be successful, that's been also a very big part of our agenda.
It's interesting to hear that while we have heard that doctors and nurses who have been in the front runner and the COVID heroes as such, but people who are supporting the hospital and the infrastructure itself, etc., also have been actually working behind the scenes. People like you all, and have been going to office actually physically all during this lockdown. So that itself should say that there are so many people working in this industry to ensure that things are under control. Deepu, if I may come to you from healthcare, insurance also becomes very, very important. And so tell us what's happening in that industry and what's changed in your ways of working.
Yeah, so Amrita, I'll break it into three parts: customers, employees, and partners. So what we did for customers was, we basically ramped up our digital assets, and we embarked on a massive communication blitzkrieg. And happy to share that the metrics, proved us right. Today, 80% of our customers get service through our digital assets. We have an AI-driven bot, we have WhatsApp, and we also have our mobile app. And we saw a 90% dip in customer complaints. So clearly, the metrics, show that the digital adoption during this period has been very high. Coming to employees, what we did, even as they were socially and physically distanced, we said, we need to get them emotionally and digitally connected. So what we did was we converted adversity into opportunity, because employee engagement programs in the office would have been only for employees. Here we also involved families. So for example, we came out with the master chef on a weekend, and it was wonderful to see, somebody's mother, somebody's sister, somebody's daughter,
Yeah.
basically, posting recipes on a WhatsApp group, and it got employees, highly engaged. We came out with the digital tambola, we came out with poster making competitions, and our employee engagement scores during this period, ironically, were higher than those which we had, during the pre-pandemic era. Now, coming to our partners, what we did was, physically we reached out to each one of them, because ours is a distribution-led model. It was not a mass email or a mass message, but we basically, reached out individually to our agents, and we, told them that we are with them, be it servicing or be it care. And what we also did was, we empowered them, because they have digital tools to, basically carry out sales. That was the second thing that we did. And the third thing, Amrita, which we did was, if you notice, typically a lot of standard operating procedures in the office are typically in paper form. We converted all of them into 2-minute, video SOPs, which we sent to them on WhatsApp. So they learned on the go, and they were able to issue. So it actually worked like a breeze for us. And we did not just survive, but we actually thrived, during the current era.
Wow, that's good to know. And then we have Manish. Infrastructure is so important in these days. So do tell us, what things have changed in terms of the digital transformation, and then what happened during the lockdown. Manish?
Am I audible?
Yeah, now you are.
Yeah.
Thank
Oh,
you.
sorry. So being a tech service provider, we have an advantage that we have all the latest tool and technology easily available. And being a greenfield, what we have done that we have taken the right measure, like putting all our application on mix on hybrid cloud, and also connectivity is a one of the requirement of data centers. So we have ample multiple connectivity available to our infrastructure, laptop for every employee, and the workflows are already modernized or digitized so that the lot of things can be done on its own from a HR to finance to other department. So this was easy for us to bring the work to the worker. So from the day one when the lockdown happened, our entire team was able to start working from day one. And during this time, there's other part which we have a problem that we were about to launch our data center. And so there, and in data center, we need to bring worker to the work. So which was a little longer procedure of bringing the right skill back to the data center so that we finish off the work and we launch. So from a that aspect, we have utilized this lockdown, and we during this lockdown only we have e-launched our data center with the presence of Honorable CM of Maharashtra and Minister of Electronics, so which you have seen. What these are the two aspects from our data center internally perspective. But what we have done additionally that we have also launched certain services for our partners and customers, where like the desktop as a service or virtual desktops, where we can keep all the data security aspect and provide the customers who are looking for, or the partners who are looking for work from home solutions. So we have also did the product launch during that time. So this has actually tested the entire digital strategy what we have planned for our data center, but this also gave us an opportunity to smoothen some of the processes like moving material inside. So we have a fully digitizing mechanism where the asset of any customer now moving in, and day one once it enters the gate, it is tagged with the RFID. So wherever it is getting hosted in the data center, we have the entire lookout. So this particular lockout will have changed our way of working, but it has also let us introduce and think differently to create more revenue for digitization, as Deepu and Arvind said. So we are trying to build more and more so that we can be digitally enabling our employee and make them communicable every time. So we have all the via media, be it as conferencing tool or internal office communication, and we have also introduced the CIO Club master class, where we have touched upon these subjects, not only the technology, but also the subjects of fitness or meditation and all, for not for employee, but also the panelists, the CIO community and the tech community across our customer and our partners.
Okay, so all of us discussed a lot about the change that happened because of the lockdown and the focus on the employees. So work from home, providing infrastructure at home, we heard some of the comments over there as such, so that, people could work on an uninterrupted manner. I just wanted to delve on to ask, and maybe we can start backwards with Manish, to say, are there any policies that have been put into your company that enable, the employee's well-being? We've spoken a lot about productivity and other aspects of the employee. The health and well-being is also very important. So focused around technology, what are the things that are there? And what do you see is going to be the new ways of working after the pandemic tapers down?
Right. So Amrita, being an IT company, again, we had a remote working policy, and however that was a need basis, as Ritu earlier said and Priya said. But what we have done is that we have created a bring your own device policy, and during this lockdown, when we have to onboard certain new skill, what we understood that to send a laptop to their home or sending a Mac or something to home was difficult. So we have given them a virtual desktop, and that is where we have tested our portal, our process. And what we have done is that apart from this, we have directly started building our LMS portal for all our processes and workflows, so that the employee who's onboarding can start accessing that and get himself trained under his not only his manager but also the team which is already there or which is joining along with him. So we have almost onboarded more than 55 plus employee onboarded during this time. And this was a time where we have to make sure that these guys, employees, are engaged not only from a work perspective, but also from a connectivity or from a well-being perspective. So at whereas one side we were running this for the workforce which is working from home, but at our data center we have brought in the staying capabilities, the shelter, the food, and the doctor and the medical kits there, so that the technician and other worker which are working over there will be taken care properly, so that we have not only the continuity of work, but also we have the same or a little less or a quality kind of deliverable at that point in time. So we have taken care of from a upskilling or a level skilling perspective, from a knowledge perspective, engaged with the employee with our LMS system, whereas we have also brought the partner and the training teams to train our employee on the other skills which they need. And the soft skill side I have already covered. So we have introduced a couple of policies to add in some more medical facilities to our employees and so on and so forth. So it has been
So you expect this to stay? These
yes,
policies to stay.
and now we are anticipating that this hybrid model will be a new way to be normal, where we will allow the employee to work from home or work from wherever he wants, as well as the people who are needed at the site will work from a site. So this hybrid model keep going to be a new normal or a new continuation. Thank you.
And Deepu, in your organization and industry, any policies which are impacting the towards the positive on the employee side?
Yeah. So Amrita, there are four aspects. First is, we've given employees a choice. Some people want to work from home because the whole point is, they don't want to commute, right? And they may feel risk of exposure. So we said, it's your choice. You can work from home. We've enabled the infrastructure. Ironically, some employees want to come to office. They come and say, that I'm tired of being caged at home. So we said, okay, you can come to office. So we've given a choice to employees and enabled both ways. Second is, Amrita, see, while we measure physical health, it's very difficult to measure mental health. And I know people are going through, their own motions. So what we have done is, we give them a confidential, counseling helpline. So they can call up and discuss any issue, and it will be absolutely confidential. It's between them and the agency, and there's no report back to the managers or anybody. So that's one tool we have given. Thirdly, Amrita, what we have done is, especially in big cities like Delhi and Mumbai, where people spend at least 2 hours commuting one way, we've invested a lot in employee digital learning. We have really capitalized on this right now, so to reskill themselves so that they can recalibrate their entire approach to the new normal. The fourth thing which we have done is, we have basically gone beyond just enabling employee work from home, so to speak, to create a bond from home concept. So what we are saying is, we've given them a lot of digital tools by which maybe they can do yoga at home. They can maybe listen to some music. They can get to some meditation modules, and that has actually helped us ensure that they continue to remain sane through this period. So I think this four-pronged approach has really helped us keep employee morale very high.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear some of the things that you guys have been doing. And Arvind, in the hospital, what's happening? Industry, health industry?
So from a health industry standpoint, obviously work from home is not something that we have too much of liberty to move around. But ensuring the mental health and the alertness of employees is very, very, very important. And again, healthcare, where day in and day out they see sickness, day in and day out they see difficult human emotions and situations. So constant focus on family members having the ability to talk to people, so that one, there's open communication. Second aspect is building that whole aspect of mindfulness, so that you start opening up despite being subject to, I would say, harsh circumstances around. Like I said, state of health and the suffering is also affects those who are looking at it. It's not just those who are enduring it. So being very careful of that. And yoga and preventive health is something. in our organization, preventive health checkups is absolutely mandatory. Absolutely mandatory. So, the fundamental premise being that when we are providing healthcare to people, I think we have a duty to ourselves and our families to stay healthy. So, that focus on preventive health for our own selves and our own families, and that focus on knowing the right diet, the right exercises, so that we are responsible to ourselves, responsible to our team members, responsible to all the co-workers that we have. So bringing that culture is something that we've been very, very focused on. Our executive management is very particular about preventive health and well-being there. So that's really how we are looking at you know uh, getting people more aligned to a difficult work environment, a demanding work environment. At the same time, difficult and demanding being the nature of the environment, ensuring that people enjoy what they are doing, so that they are able to contribute the best of their abilities at what they're doing.
Right. And Priya?
I think the themes, we can see the themes evolving, right? The insurance was continued, and work from home policies and preventive healthcare. For us, I think one of the biggest things that we did was we continued to engage with people. So what happened when people start working from home, there is a loss of engagement. And that was something that we kind of worked hard to do. So like a few things that we did was we did our onboarding on, we never none of our promotions got delayed, none of our increments got delayed, none of our onboardings of new employees got delayed. We have a new 2020 set of management trainees. We have a new set of engineer graduates who come and do their training for the first 6 months or so. So that has happened completely. We have programs where we next level leader programs. All of that has transitioned seamlessly to digital. Um, we have any programs that we used to do for alignment of different teams. All that has happened, is continuously happening. There is no delay. The only thing is that it has moved from physical world to the virtual world. And this is important because the employees should not feel that what is happening tomorrow. And that's something that we are very cognizant of. We have a weekly newsletter that goes out, and we didn't do it before COVID. But we now, since March, every week from the CEO's desk, an email goes out to every single employee telling them everything that is happening in every single function. So what is happening in marketing, what is happening in sales, what is happening in digital, everything is outlined. It's a longish email. And so which makes them feel very, engaged with the leadership, engaged with the company. And so that's something that we've very specifically, we make sure that happens, in addition to everything that has been happening as well. So that is something that we are very proud of, that we are taking care of the fact from that angle, that they don't have to worry what is going to happen tomorrow, or what is happening, I'm not aware.
Yeah. And Ritu?
So taking forward from what Priya said, I think in our case, as I said, people were working from home, and advertising is generally a industry which is very heavy into hugging and sitting together. And if you come to our office, there's a breakout space with guitars and chess playing. So you very often you walk into the office and you'll find people with guitars.
Social.
Very social, very interactive thing. So it was something which we were very worried. That was a worrying factor, that when people are sitting at home alone, how do you continue to it? And I think our HR actually jumped into the fray over here. And obviously, as I said, OneDrive was one example. Like the other thing was Microsoft Teams. People weren't on it, even despite me saying. So these guys have been
creativity gets killed sometimes, because
so
of
they've
these
been using Teams to start having brainstorming sessions. They've been using Teams to, obviously each team is, while apart from the work happening, they've been having every Friday is a Friday night out type of a thing. So you have Tambola activities, you have people talent shows. So people who have specific things are coming onto Instagram and, playing guitar, somebody else is singing. So, and then everyone participates and looks at it. So it's like having those sessions, but virtually. Another thing which we've been doing is we've been sending out, they've been sending out mails to people saying, what new thing have you done over the lockdown? So, somebody said, "No, listen, I was never a cooking person, but I realized that there's a process to cooking." And I've spent time with my nephew, I've spent time with my kid, or this is a new skill I've acquired, I've realized I've learned patience on how to handle kids. So and then we're saying, you send out your flying high picture. So everyone's been sending pictures with, with their arms outstretched as if they're flying high. So it's just getting people on a continuous basis to enthusiastically and not let the morale go down and say things are there. We've been having regular town halls, e-town halls with people. So it's an interactive thing where people are able to ask their questions, get their concerns addressed. And standard things have actually tied up with a couple of health apps, the yoga, mind space apps type of a thing, which help you stay in that thing. They've tied up with doctors 24/7, which allow you to have online consultations. So I think there's a lot of bonding which is happening, and a lot of effort is being made to say we're there, and nothing has stopped. So like Priya said, we normally do a brand fest, which is celebration. Everyone's supposed to come and say how they have, what they have achieved for their brands, how they've done something different. And it's a whole festival, which last year we had all gone to Lonavala to do it. And the concept is everyone is supposed to come and tell what they have done. We are doing it online next week.
Okay, that's great to hear. I think we have time for one last question. Maybe I'll pose it to Deepu, because here what I'm going to be asking you, Deepu, is that network connectivity is very important when we are doing the digital transformation. Whether it's connecting the employees, connecting the partners, or connecting the customers. How do you see the network transformation as a part of the agenda of the digital transformation? There's a lot of new technology like SD-WAN, 5G coming in. Quick comment on that. We just have about a minute or so left.
Amrita, that's a good question. In fact, there was a very interesting, Gartner report, which basically said that all the budgets in favor of transformation, innovation, and January globally were recast in favor of, just keeping the lights on, when the pandemic hit us. I think there are two ways to tackle this. One is to basically come out with, light versions of your app, where the connectivity is low. So if you have a heavy app, you also come out with a light version, which can be used by, people, in those areas. The other thing which we have done is to ensure that the traffic is consistent. We also come out with, multilingual options. So that ensures, that even people, in the rural parts of India, have access to the assets, in their languages. So these are two things we have adopted. And I think, it's so far helped us.
Yeah. So if I may just conclude, what we heard is that the customer needs have always been important, and the tech agenda was usually driven with focus towards that. But with COVID-19 situation, it's become imperative for the organization to consider the well-being and productivity of its employees. Every one of the organizations and industries are focusing on that. Using a lot of the new next-gen technologies. Working from home will become the new normal, and hence enabling all these functionalities for them to be able to work in a secure, with very good network is going to be extremely important. Thank you, each one of you, for participating and having this interactive session. I really enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.